Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Azakan here, bringing you another video for Conqueror's Blade, published by Porus Interactive. This is another PTR update. Probably going to be a little bit late. We're probably going to get the patch notes for the 20th hitting very soon. And when I mean soon, in around about 12 hours. But that being said, let's go over some of the changes. Maybe all of them will hit live as is. Very short. Again, PTR, a lot of time is very short. They normally do not allow us to do a lot of thorough testing, and a lot of times they don't really need to. It's just kind of like ironing out a couple of the bugs. Anyway, we got ranging guards. Sorry. Do note these are actually replacements for the balance adjustments that happened on the Friday. So all of the units mentioned here, their changes are completely replaced. So it's not add-ons; these are replacements. Um, Varangian Guards base stats, base piercing damage goes from 1218 to 1326. Base slashing armor penetration goes from 1650 to 1800. Base slashing damage goes from 1588 to 1755. While using Raging Onslaught, max HP cap is increased by 300 after Raging Onslaught ends and the unit returns to the Sword and Shield state. The extra max HP is removed. The duration of Great Sweep, Colossal Strike, and Shadow Shields are increased from 1.5 seconds to 3 seconds. Fix an issue where the on-hit healing from these three skills could be delayed. Great Sweep block break value increased to 300. I'll tell you right now, these changes are not enough. Still in a good direction. Well, I say in a good direction. Not what I would have done, but the most significant thing here is the HP cap being increased, and the damage. The damage being increased roughly by like 8-ish%. Um, but their survivability being increased by like 20% is a big thing. It's kind of like the biggest part. The block break increase also helps them just to shred through the shield block, but overall they're still really struggling to kind of dish out the amount of damage that they should be dealing, considering that there's only 16 of them, um, and they only deal roughly around about like 2,500 damage. So, um, I definitely do expect Varangian Guards should see more buffs if they intend to keep focusing on these things. Other than that, I'm really sad that they still haven't done anything with their Sword and Shield state, still focusing on Raging Onslaught being the main thing. And I understand that, but um, I'd much see a kind of um, homogenizing of the unit where their Sword and Shield state is one thing and their Raging Onslaught is another thing. But at this point, I think making Raging Onslaught just an I win button is probably the best way to handle the Ranging Guards. Greyhair Garrison base stats: base piercing armor penetration goes from 1415 to 1515. Base piercing damage goes from 1219 to 1319. Base block 500 to 850. Base block recovery 75 to 90. New effect added to unit tag. By the book. After forming 3-rank formation, gain 1 stack of guard every 2 seconds. Each stack grants 4% damage reduction up to 10 stacks. If executing follow formation, free attack, or charge, the guard state can be retained for up to 5 seconds. Duty until death when the unit size falls below 60% or total 14 or fewer, damage dealt is increased by 25%. That is already on top of when their health is below 40%, they deal like 20%, 25% increased damage and heals on a hit. So yeah, these guys can have a bunch of passives. So wow. Skill Last Stand on cast cleanses all damage over time effects during the effect. Pikeman deal plus 15 damage. Skill Charge on cast cleanses all damage over time effects. Base cooldown 25 seconds to 20 seconds. Upon reaching the target location, automatically perform one instance of no retreat. This instance does not share cooldown with the normal no retreat skill. Honestly, at this point, Grey Hair Garrisons actually don't need more. Um, Making them tank is definitely not the solution. Grey Hair Garrison actually lacks a lot of upfront damage, and I like the idea of like the unit getting stronger as there is less of them, but the bonuses are just not enough to make up for the fact that they're weak starting point. I mean, Judy until death, um, I'd I'd actually go really crazy with this and have the unit's damage increase proportionally to how few of them are how few of them are left. So like if you lose half your units, the remaining half should have double damage. There's only a quarter of your unit left, the quarter of your unit should deal 4 times damage. So you're always dealing the maximum amount of damage that the unit could ever output, even if there's less models. Is kind of how I would be. It's just kind of like how I would have done it. But um, that being said, uh, make focusing on making them a tank is definitely the wrong way to handle Grey Hair Garrison. I definitely just double their damage at this point. They deal so little damage in comparison to other units that um, you would have to make them basically Iron Reaper level tanky before they would be even worth to bring along. And you also have problems with that anyway. If you make them Iron Reapers level tanky, and then you got this 10% heal every time they attack kind of thing to deal with, which with a little bit of with a little bit of shenanigans, you can actually get them to attack quite frequently. Other than that, there's like a few other issues that Grey Garrisons still have. Um, they have like hit registry issues. They like a lot of times their attacks will either not hit properly or they'll cancel their attack. They get body blocked every time you try to form, which is again like a holdover from like uh from like old formations and stuff. I don't know why they still have this issue. We have shield maidens who attack to get into formation, which I think every single unit should basically have that. Um, Especially Grey Hair Garrisons should basically get that logic. What else was I going to say? Um, well, that's about it. Um, the only confusing thing is I like to be clarified is like, what the hell does Last Stand do? At this point, I don't even know what kind of stuff Last Stand does. I know that like apparently there's like the swordsmen get like extra multi-hit or and a 40% damage increase when Last Stand is active. That's just like, man, sounds like Last Stand should be like crazy strong, but at the same time, it's not. So I'm very weirded out. I don't know why they decided to have like cleanses like damage over time effects because they're not really that prevalent unless you're fighting returns. So definitely kind of a weird thing just to add. Um, it would be cool if they had like a mechanic where they had damage over a time applied to them, and then they would cleanse it themselves. Would have been cool. Moving on, we have Monastic Knights base stats going from base piercing armor penetration 1874 to 2024, base piercing damage of 1088 to 1338. This is a reduction from the previous change, but it's still a buff, if that makes sense. Don't know why monastic knights weren't particularly terrifying in the previous state. I can understand a couple of these changes, but at the same time, I don't know why they pulled back so hard. Monastic knights kind of deserve some action and some love. Skill charge. If the charge is interrupted, Judgment Thrust is triggered. Judgment Thrust deals 150% piercing damage to up to 3 targets. The debuff applied by charge target damage taken increase 30% to 35%. Um, which is very weird because I'm pretty sure the debuff is not supposed to be applied by Judgment Thrust, and it's also supposed to come with a concussion. So, um, I have actually not tested that thoroughly, whether or not that change has happened. But anyway, I did want to mention that I don't know why they decided to pull back on the changes to the monastic knights. I'm actually kind of upset that they've decided to kind of pull back. Uh, you could have left the base stats as it is, and even if it was going to be like one of the highest damage charge in the game, it wouldn't have mattered anyway because monastic knights has their own problems, and it's mostly to do with speed. Yeah, it is mostly to do with speed. Anyway, continuing on to the Winged Hussars. While at high speed, Hussar charge now ignores the target's block. Still hate that change. Lance hit detection effective length reduced by 0.31 meters. Actually, a really big nerf, considering they actually take so much damage from pikes now that like losing that extra 3-1 actually makes them lose out in a lot of pike or like anti-cavalry situations, which they previously would have um, kind of won. But the caveat to this is that the check frequency is increased for more accurate hit registration. So this is actually kind of a weird scenario where they're actually way more consistent um, and will perform better, but because they lose that um, 0.31 meters, their range now puts them in more danger. So, um, so it's just kind of like a, some of the scenarios that you're running into are that the anti-cavalry units are actually killing the winged hussars more consistently. Well, sorry, killing the winged hussars, but the winged hussars are dealing more damage more consistently. So like units that would like previously either get rolled over or completely hold or like hold off a winged hussars like end up taking more damage but are able to take out the winged hussars more consistently. So it's really a weird situation where it's going to take a little bit more testing to understand. But how I see it is that like losing that range has made the winged hussars weaker overall. Um, the check frequency just made them more consistent because apparently they fixed an issue where the damage could fail to calculate at high speed during Hussar charge, which I'm not surprised because um, I've noticed this with my lag that sometimes, like when I charge stuff, I don't do any damage sometimes. Even if in a even in like a direct on wing to saw charge, I've actually just lost completely for no reason. I have no idea why. I don't see damage numbers, but for some reason they hit me first. So, there. But maybe that's just me. We got Falconetti Gunners reduce the firing interval of basic attack and attack area by 8%, increase base ammo capacity by 12%, increase shell flight speed by 18%. No idea why they decided to reduce the buffs for Falconetti Gunners. Honestly, even with the changes to the Falconetti Gunners, I still don't think anyone would have bothered to use them because of how shit they are. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe these changes, maybe people were complaining that they're too strong or something. I doubt that. But at the same time, I mean, like, The one thing that I can imagine is that they were destroying siege towers too fast, but you're gonna have to deal with that anyway. And also they get outcompeted by um, Lion Roar crew, which are just way better. Like you're supposed to be Falconetti gunners, you're supposed to be a long range bomb, like long range cannons and stuff. Whether or not you're supposed to be mortars or anything, I think people like them to be mortars, so they like high arcs and stuff. But I don't, I don't believe in that stuff. If you wanted to make a mortar unit, make a mortar unit. If you want to make you Falconetti gunners, definitely should be cannonballs shooting directly straight at the enemy and stuff. That's how I think. Anyway, Haskell's, a bunch of changes, definitely a better direction than the previous one. So, Haskell's, optimized movement targeting for Haskell charge, Sea Surge, Gathering Storm. Haskell's now engage targets in a charging state. Really cool. They kind of did this, but this is way more consistent now. Skill Haskell charge. Slashing armor penetration coefficient goes from 1.2 to 1.5. Damage coefficient is now 1.5 from 1.36. While the animation is executing, cleanses, control, and parrying effects. Base cooldown 12 seconds to 8 seconds. Base duration is 6 seconds to 4 seconds. Skill Sea Surge, slashing armor penetration coefficient 1.2 to 1.5. Damage coefficient 1.16 to 1.3. I know I'm supposed to say 1.16, but like, god dang. While the animation is executing cleanses control effect, base cooldown 9 seconds, 7 goes from 9 seconds to 7 seconds, base duration from 5 seconds to 3.5 seconds. Remove song unending now during Skull's song, killing heroes slash soldiers or assisting in hero kills stores directly restores the Skull Song skill value when the Skull Song fires. If still in an attack animation, kills at that moment will not restore the value. Slightly increase the skill value gained from soldier kills. This is an amazing change now. Mostly because they've actually decided to increase the damage, which, funnily enough, is still not enough. It's a 10% ish damage increase. Against higher armor value targets, it's probably closer to around about 20%. That being said, there is a problem with Sea Surge where they're dealing a lot less damage now. The problem here is that there's a conflict between the new shield bash attack and the old shield swipe. And what I mean by that is skill surge doesn't uh, is not coded correctly to choose or to pick one or the other, or to use them one after the other. It's coded to use either at random, and it's causing a lot of really weird conflicts because they're trying to attack, but they can't sometimes, or they use the weaker variant now. Previously, or on live, what would happen is that they would use the new shield bash one and then follow up with the old shield swipe. But now they only do one special attack and then they lock up until the 3.5 seconds is over. I hope they fix that before that hits live. And I just wish they just get rid of the new attack. It's honestly just really bad because of how low the damage is, or actually match the damage. Um, otherwise, otherwise, Sea Surge is so inconsistent on the PTR right now that Gathering Storm is actually better. And funnily enough, I did actually notice that Gathering Storm has a second attack variant, which allows them to do way more damage than the overhead attack, which funnily enough is like really crazy because they go from like dealing a little bit of damage to a lot of damage because it's two attack versus one attack. The overhead the over like the the difference between the attack is quite startling, considering it's like literally 100% difference. I'm glad that they finally decided to like actually do something to skulls that really gets them going. And these changes are really cool because it kind of feeds into their multi-charge kind of gimmick that I've been saying before. With the low cooldowns as well, um, you really get that feeling of just like wanting to just go ham a lot. Um, but I still like to see some additional adjustments, especially with follow-up basic attacks, and just generally, um, I still think they need to give a little bit of love to their normal stance and bore snout. I really don't like lopsided units like this where everything's kind of loaded into one side of it. I kind of like to see if they could give a purpose or at least a kind of like what do you call it? Some kind of gimmick where their normal stance kind of shifts away from being all damage and stuff or something. Give Make the unit more balanced out instead of just being focused in one state because if you just make it focused on one state too much, you just may as well just keep it in that one state at all times kind of thing. Where it's just like the chant like the point of the chanting is to like again have this kind of power up situation. But sometimes you're not gonna get that power up situation. Sometimes you need to just fight in your normal mode is kind of what I'm trying to say. In the end, really good changes for this round. Some of them are kind of questionable, especially these three. These ones are questionable. Still think Grey Hair Garrison's in the wrong direction, and I really do hope that they don't give Cataphrax that 60% movement speed thing. It's kind of weird watching Cataphrax move faster than Prefecture Heavy Cavalry. And I'm not even kidding. Like in a very particular scenario, they were moving faster than heavy. Like it looked like they were moving faster than heavy Prefecture Cavalry. Very difficult to actually get them to do that. They're still absolutely worthless as it was. But anyway, what do you guys think about the second set of changes? Do you hope they just all hit live so you guys can test them out yourselves, or whether or not you think these are not to your liking? Some of these things, um, some of these things are definitely not enough for these units. If I was to be honest, um, it's not gonna, it's not gonna be like game changing or anything. I don't think any of these are significant enough for people to actually use them long term. They will see some action because of just adjustments in general. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We should see the patch. Oh well, the patch notes for the 20th hitting in like 12 hours or something. So let's see if they change anything from this balance adjustment. It's not the first time that certain things have changed when it hits live and hasn't gone through the PTR. I mean, a lot of times balance changes just hit live without going through the PTR stage. But I do hope that it's still in this moderate direction. I do think nothing has been completely reworked. There's just a lot of added stuff. So, other than that, my name's Azakai. Have a nice day. Bye for now.